Hey everyone, welcome back to the Q&A for the American Justice Podcast, episode 2. We hope you all are having a good week. Thank you for listening. That just means the world does.
Thank you for being a friend.
Yes. Traveled down the road and back again.
I hope we don't get copyrighted for that.
I do.
Can you even mention it?
I have a pair of Golden Girls pajama pants.
I must have.
I am not making this up. My daughter gave them to me for Christmas, and I wear them from time to time.
I think I've thought of the new or the next Christmas gift to myself.
They're really awesome.
I love me some Rose.
Yeah. That was such a great show. They don't make television shows like that anymore.
No, they do not.
They can't even make The Walking Dead correctly right now. But my opinion. Sorry to any deadheads out there. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. Thank you guys so much for listening. We had quite a few questions this week, even some over the telephone where people decided to use their names and their locations. So we'll be playing those questions and answering those for you. You'll get to hear their voice. Don't forget, though, to do the same. Don't forget to call in and ask your questions or email or Facebook. Anywhere that you can find us on social media. We're all over the place.
I feel like we're everywhere.
We are everywhere. Don't forget, after you listen to the episodes, to submit your questions, and we might just read them or listen to them and answer them here on the weekly Q&A. Scott, how's your week going so far?
You know, it's going great. I've had a couple days off now, so I feel like I'm rested and relaxed. So I don't have to worry about coming in here in the middle of my sleeping or anything.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
No,
we don't want to do that at all.
The viewers do not want to listen to me sleep. Trust me.
No, they don't want to listen to me sleep either. No one ever complains anymore about me snoring. I know they used to. But no one has complained about me snoring in quite a while, so I don't know if I still do. Hopefully, we're not making the viewers out there snore right now as we go into this conversation. I think we should jump into the questions. So this was episode 2, and it dealt with the crime scene.
The crime scene.
A little. We'll go more into that with other episodes. There was a lot to talk about, so it's going to take multiple episodes.
Yeah.
What's an episode?
An episode.
An episode.
That's a
episode. We're going to start out, though. We have a couple of questions from online viewers, online listeners.
Can I just mention also that there was one person that called in and left a voicemail, but they didn't expressly say that I could use their voice on the air, so I'm not able to use their question.
Oh,
so if you do call and leave a voicemail, just say like, "Hey, yeah, you can use my voice" or whatever. That way, we don't get in trouble.
That's really important, guys. Don't forget that. If you do call the number and you leave a message with a question or a comment, please give us permission to use your voice on the air.
And you can say it in the beginning or the end or the middle.
Right in the middle. Just
Right.
stop what you're saying.
Stop what
right
you're
in the middle of
saying.
the question. So, by the way, you can use my voice.
That's right.
And you have to say it all seductively like that, too.
I love it when people use my voice.
You can use the sound of my voice.
Okay.
I have a face for radio.
It's a good thing we don't edit these because I'd have to be going back and cutting everywhere. But no, we just give the viewers what we think of right off the top of our head, and they either like it or they don't. You know what I mean?
Right. The podcast is scripted. The Q&As, they are not.
No, they're not.
It's like behind the scenes, almost like a blooper reel.
Definitely a blooper reel. Blooper reel for sure.
Let's start out with the questions.
I mean, we're 5 minutes in and we haven't even gotten to a question.
No, we
yet,
haven't. We're sorry.
I feel like we could have our
apologize.
own Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast.
And we probably could. We probably could.
Well, I don't know. People have to tell us. Oh, that's another thing I was going to say. When you're on the YouTube channel, last week we didn't really. It's one of those things where people always like 2 seconds into the video they're like, "Hey guys, like and subscribe and click the bell icon and all that stuff." I always think that that's so corny, so I don't say stuff like that. But I will say that there were like no comments on our last video, and I was very hurt.
It'll be okay.
I feel like if you watch the video, you should maybe comment.
Scott, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, Scott.
Well, thank you.
It's not your fault.
I needed that.
It's not your fault.
Are you sure? Maybe it is. I mean, there's only two of us, so it's 50% chance it's my fault.
Let's get into some questions here.
Okay.
Okay. So DJ from Houston.
Hello,
says,
DJ.
Hey guys, you mentioned very briefly that Brandon had a girlfriend named Morgan, I think. Mm-hmm. What's the deal with that? I thought he was gay.
Well, as you can imagine, as a lot of teenagers that are questioning their sexuality, that have been told their whole life that they have to be straight to be happy, and all of a sudden they're starting to realize, well, you know what? I don't really feel that way. He had a girlfriend and some. He did have one guy that he was kind of seeing steady, but Brandon was a 19-year-old, real like kind of fly by the seat of his pants kid. He just did whatever Brandon wanted to do. I think it's even in an interview somewhere. Maybe it was the one I did for the documentary, but he basically said, I was 19 years old. Brandon did what Brandon wanted to do, and that was very much true. Obviously, his girlfriend at the time didn't know about his budding sexuality, but it's just one of those things that you go through sometimes in that coming out process. It's just you have a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and they don't know about each other. And that's kind of the way it was here. He just, but I think it's next episode, in episode 3, we get into his when Michelle, it is episode 3, when Michelle comes in and starts talking to Ranger Collins. She actually says, that Brandon and Morgan were so close that she asked Morgan if she needed, contraception or anything, and it was like, no, they don't. Trust me, they don't. But so that was kind of just the way it was. So yeah, he did have a girlfriend at the time, but he also, went to the club, the gay club, and was dancing and enjoying that part of his life as well. I have a feeling that if he didn't end up going to jail or going to prison, that it would have not taken very much longer for him to finally come out to everybody. And he was on that. He was on the precipice.
Right.
I don't mean to use the $5 words.
Also, though, I mean, Royce City, Rockwall, Heath, that area, not quite as big in 2005 as they are now. And I lived in Royce City in 1985. I lived there for a year. We had like a flashing red light, a bunch of abandoned buildings downtown off of Highway 66, and a drugstore where my mother worked that also doubled as the comic book store and movie store. She used to bring home VHSs after work.
Nice.
But I went to school there for a year. I came from Greenville, which is not far away, and it's not much bigger, but I long hair, and I was the enemy. Seriously, I was the only kid not wearing boots, not wearing a cowboy hat, that family didn't live on a farm, and I had long hair. And I rode a skateboard too, and people in 1985 thought I was the devil in that town.
Wow.
So I can't imagine what it would be like living there and coming out as gay. It's just all I did was grow my hair, and I was the devil.
Can you imagine if you grew your hair and were gay?
I can't. They would have put me under the jail.
Under the jail, yeah, instead of in it. Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, should we go to a voicemail question?
Let's do a voicemail question.
Right. Let's see if I can bring it. Let's see if I can make the magical sound gods work. Let's go to Kim. Let's see what she has to say.
Hi, guys. This is Kim from Greenville, Texas. I remember the Brandon Woodruff case from when it first happened, and I'm glad somebody's finally covering it. It was a huge deal, and all of a sudden it went away. Like, people just didn't care. People stopped caring. You didn't hear anything about it, and I just kind of felt like the guy was getting a raw deal. I went to a couple of his days of his trial and watched and didn't see anything that really showed that he was guilty. Now, as I'm listening to your podcast, it's starting to sound the same way. I hope if he really is innocent, you guys can help him out. My only question has to do with a fact that really stuck out out to me even at the time. If there were 2 murder weapons, wouldn't that point to more than one perpetrator? Did the prosecution ever suggest that there was someone helping Brandon? Thanks, guys, and I'll be listening. Can't wait for your next podcast. Have a great day.
All right, Kim.
Well, thank you, Kim. First, let me say thank you very much for the question. I'm really excited about the number of people that are starting to kind of get engaged about this case, especially someone like Kim that apparently went to a couple days of his trial. That's pretty cool. I'd actually maybe like to talk to her about that. But I'll answer the second part of her question first. Yes, I mean, if it's kind of difficult to say because, and the reason I say that is because the prosecution only ever theorized that it was Brandon and Brandon alone. And you know, they had a couple different ways that they theorized that he did it. One was that he was just having dinner with his parents, and they got into a discussion about him being gay, and all of a sudden it just kind of blew up, and it was like a kind of heat of passion type thing. And then the other thing, when people started pointing out, well, wait a second, this murder weapon that you're talking about, and we'll get into this much later detail.
Much later.
But this huge murder weapon. I mean, what are you alleging that he kept this 18-inch sword in his back pocket? Like that doesn't make sense. Like he just walked around with it. So when that didn't make sense, then they started to say, oh well, he had it planned out and he had it under the cushion, like the couch cushion or whatever. So they had a couple different ways that they were trying to say, but it was always him and him alone. And you know, that just didn't it just didn't make sense. And that was one of those things that is so frustrating about this case. But to the first part of your question, yes, it would normally point to 2 different perpetrators. In fact, when we get into the pathologist report, I think we'll probably cover that in trial. It was actually alleged, or I won't say alleged, but it was indicated by the pathologist that there were actually more than one knife used. So because of the patterns of the stab wounds, it was alleged that, or it was indicated that that there was actually 2 different types of knives. So now we're talking about 3 murder weapons. And it's just, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of have to think, well, who would sit there and use 2 murder weapons when, you know, especially since Dennis was shot in the face, you would have to imagine that that killed him. And then Norma was shot 4 or 5 times, you know, so why would you even need to use a knife? You know, like it just doesn't make sense. And you can't imagine that there was any kind of struggle, again, if you're alleging that it was Brandon that did it, because Brandon was, at the time, you know, he was like 5'6", 110 pounds, probably soaking wet. Yeah, exactly. So you can't imagine that there would be, you know, and another thing, we haven't really got into this yet, but Dennis was a rather large man. I would say he was like guy. 300 and something pounds, 6 foot something. So, you know, there's no way that that he's going to struggle with Brandon with a knife or a big 18-inch sword that you have to wield like a warrior and then not overpower him, you know. So that whole kind of theory from the prosecution just really never made sense. But yes, it would indicate that there were at least 2 perpetrators. And when the documentary comes out, you will see that.
Yes,
we
also
will explain
the
that
future
in detail.
episodes of the American Justice Podcast, we'll be covering that as well.
Yes.
All the more reason for you to keep listening.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Let's see, you want to go to another online question?
Yes.
We have Jeffrey from Broken Bow. Love Broken Bow. You ever been to Beaver's Bend, Scott?
I have.
That sounds like a loaded question. It is not a loaded question. It is an actual place in Oklahoma called Beaver's Bend.
I have not been there,
Okay.
surprisingly.
It is in
Or not
in
surprisingly.
Broken Bow, Oklahoma, and
Broken
it's
Bow.
absolutely beautiful camping, white water,
Right,
water,
Raggy.
white water canoeing and kayaking,
That sounds
hiking,
fun.
things like that. Really awesome place, not that far away from here.
Are we going to give like another free shout out again like we did last week?
We're giving a free shout out to Beavers. Well, actually, it's the state of Oklahoma because it's an Oklahoma state park.
Ah, yes.
So we're gonna be the first Texans to ever give a shout out to the state of Oklahoma.
That is true.
So you're welcome, Oklahoma.
Yes.
Jeffrey from Broken Bow, Oklahoma says, "Hey, I think you said something about crime scene video or photos. Any way we could see those? Thanks. Love the show. Very interesting case." Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We
We
appreciate
think
that.
so too. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. No, this case is totally boring. That's why we're covering
There
it.
is nothing boring about this case. Insane in the way it was handled? Sure. Boring? No.
No, definitely not boring. Well, I'm glad actually that somebody asked that because I want to point everybody to our website, which is AmericanJusticePodcast.com. And on there, there's going to be, or there is a link that you can click on case info, and every episode will have its own page. And basically, we're just going to put on there stuff from that particular week's episode. So if you go there now, you click case info and go to the second episode, you can see, I think we put like a 2-minute clip of the crime scene video because nobody ever believes me when I say that they filmed the crime scene in the dark. So
We have proof.
we have proof. So I put a 2-minute clip up there just so you can kind of see how the investigation was started from the beginning. And I also put part of Ranger Collins, because one of the things that I refer to in the episodes is Ranger Collins' investigative report. And it's like 300. It's like 320 pages. So I put the part of it. I think it's like maybe 19 or 20 pages that deals with the subject matter that we talk about in this episode. Now, I can put some crime scene photos up there. The only problem is I did promise the family when I got these photos that I would not post photos of Dennis and Norma. So I can post photos of, the bloody couch and the blood, the drops of blood that are heading up to the bathroom. I can the bathroom, like I can post photos of all that stuff. I just can't post photos of Dennis and
Right,
Norma.
that's understood. That's respectful.
Yeah.
You sick people out there for asking us to do such a thing. How dare you?
Well, and it's also, I'm glad that people are asking this because it's kind of like, I really hope that we have a bunch of amateur sleuths, I really hope that we have people that are wanting to look into the evidence, that are wanting to look into the files that we have and the videos and the interviews. And, eventually when we get to Mike's interview, we'll put his whole interview up there, so people can watch that. So that I'm glad that people want to look into it because, hey, you never know. Part of our army may find something that we didn't find. And they say, Scott, you might want to take a look at this. And then I send it to the attorney, and then the attorney says, wow, that's the thing that's going to get Brandon out of prison. It could happen.
I can imagine when you start posting certain people's interviews up there, how I doubt very seriously they're going to run around town going, "Hey, y'all, look, I'm famous.
Hey, go look at my interview with the Ranger Collins.
Y'all want to see my interview?" Not calling any names or anything.
All right. Well, I think we're about halfway through. Maybe we should take a break.
Yeah, let's take a quick break.
Let's take a break, and we got a couple words from our sponsor right now.
I missed it.
You missed it.
I missed it.
It's vacation planning season. You know what that means. Countless hours of planning, internet searching, and price comparing for your next trip. Don't you want to know if you're getting the best deal for your hard-earned cash? Now you can take the stress away and let an experienced certified travel agent do all the work for you. After all, time is money, and you shouldn't waste either. Call Tiffany Elvington of ET Family Travel at 903-408-7230 or email tiffanie.elvington@gmail.com. Tiffany's services are always 100% free to you. Now, if you mention you heard about her on the American Justice Podcast, you will receive a free gift when your trip is booked and paid. Stop stressing over something that's supposed to relax you and call Tiffany. You won't regret it. Again, Tiffany's phone number is 903-408-7230, and her email is tiffanie.elvington@gmail.com. Also, even if you don't really know where you want to go, Tiffany can help you decide. She has real-world experience with all of the best destinations. Call or email her today.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the American Justice Podcast live Q&A video for episode 2. Thanks for sticking around through our sponsors, and we're going to go,
As they say in Hollywood, recorded live.
Recorded live.
Because we're not actually
live from the None of Your Business studios.
I think maybe, we should have some in-studio audience members sometime.
I think we should.
The radio shows that do that, and they we've got, 15 people watching us right now or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure we could get an attorney or two in here.
I'm sure. I don't know if we need an attorney in here. I mean, maybe we will eventually. I don't know.
We have a couple more questions.
Yes.
That from the phone lines that called in. We're going to play one of those right now.
All right. I think this one's from Christy.
Hey, Scott and Chad.
Hey.
This is Christy calling in from Orlando. And by the way, feel free to use my voice on the air.
Orlando.
I just wanted to first of all say how much I'm enjoying the podcast, especially the question and answer episode.
Thank you.
I do have a question about something in episode 2. You said that Ranger Collins was the one that suggested they film the crime scene in the dark because they wanted to film it the way they found it. But you also said that it was only around 5 p.m. when the police were originally called. So wouldn't they have originally found it in the light? I guess I just didn't get that part. But anyway, thanks guys. I'm really getting into the case. It's really interesting. Bye.
Thank you, Christy from Orlando.
Well, thank you, Christy.
That's a really good question, and it's a fairly simple answer.
Is it?
Well, they had to have a search warrant first.
Right. They were so they got their initial kind of entry into the house was just to make sure that they didn't have somebody that could be revived and they needed to call the paramedics, if they were just sitting there and gasping for air or whatever. But B, also to make sure that there were no other perpetrators in the house, no other threats to their safety. So once they conducted that original search, that was pretty much, that's the only thing that by law they're allowed to do until they get a search warrant. So they pretty much just waited outside until I think it was like 4 hours it took them to get a search warrant, which seems kind of weird. In Hunt County, you'd think the judge would be you just call them up on the phone at home.
Not quite. You have
Hey,
to climb. You have to climb the telephone pole, make the call, climb back down.
Call the operator, have them plug you in.
Plus, it was October, so gets darker quicker, and But that was a really good question, Christy, from Orlando.
But yes, it was. So by the time they got into the crime scene to document it, it was dark already.
And if you haven't watched it yet, it looks like an episode of Ghost Adventures. I don't know if anybody watches that show.
Yep, it does.
Like, my name is Zach Bagans. I never believed in ghosts until my producer told me I had to.
Is that the way it goes?
Something along those lines.
That's awesome. But yeah, so and we'll get into there's other parts of the especially when we get into the trial. We'll talk a little bit more about the crime scene video, because it does come up. But it's kind of funny. It's like all the stuff that we're talking about now that just don't make a lot of sense. And some stuff we may not be like completely covering 100%. It's because it's going to come up in trial again, and we're going to refer back to it. And by the time we get to trial, it'll make a little more sense when we talk about it.
Yeah,
But
no spoilers.
No spoilers. We're not.
Got to keep you around.
What did you say last week? We're not writers or anything.
Yeah, we're not writers or anything. We don't cliffhang you on purpose.
Okay. All right. So we got one more question. This is from a gentleman named Sean.
Hey, this message is for Scott and Chad. My name is Sean, and I live in Denver. I don't mind if you use my voice on the air, but I just had a question about the person you said called the detective when he was attending the autopsy. How long was this after the murder, and what information did you have to provide? Thanks, guys. Really enjoy it.
Well, thank you, Sean, from Denver. Denver, yes. I love Denver, by the way.
Denver is an awesome city. And it has nothing to do with the recreational legalization of marijuana. Nothing at all.
And this is like two guys from Texas now giving a shout out to two different states.
Yes.
Colorado and
Colorado, Oklahoma. Orlando, Florida.
Well, we didn't really give a shout out to Orlando.
Orlando.
We should, though.
I've been there a few times. It was great. We love you.
Yes, I do like Orlando. It's a lot of fun. But to answer your question, the person that called Detective Gibson, or actually, she didn't even really call Detective Gibson in the beginning. She just kind of called the sheriff's department. And she used the star 67 to make sure that she blocked her caller ID because she did not want to be identified. But then when they got out of the autopsy, Detective Gibson called back to dispatch and, trying to see what's going on. And he basically just told her, or told the dispatcher, if she calls back again, give her my number. So she did. And the woman that called Detective Gibson that had been calling the sheriff's department was Norma Etherington. Which was Mike Etherington's mom. And, the question was, what information did she have to give? Well, she basically, I'll actually, maybe I should put up the written statement, because she actually did come in and give a written statement, but they basically in the beginning, it was just to say, hey, their son Brandon, Norma and Dennis's son Brandon, has kind of been leading this alternative lifestyle, and he was friends with my son until senior year, and then they had a falling out, and he's been known to be a liar and blah blah blah. I mean, basically the only reason for the call was to assassinate Brandon's character, and Detective Gibson basically said, okay, well, we may need to get back to you, so let me get your phone number and all that stuff. And that was pretty much what they did. But that initial call was to give information about the homicides of Dennis and Norma. How she knew it was a homicide?
Yeah, the cause of death hadn't even been revealed to the public at that point.
Yeah, remember, they were just then leaving the autopsy, and the autopsy didn't even really tell them anything more than that it was a high caliber slug that was shot. So they knew it was like a 40 or a 45, something like that. They had no idea what kind of gun it was, if it was somebody that broke into the house and it was some kind of beef, or if it was murder-suicide. At that point, they didn't even know if it was like a rabid animal attack. Like, there was no indication as to how they died, or I would say the circumstances around how they died, I should say. Because, Todd, when Todd went in there, he could see, it was a pretty bloody crime scene. I don't think he took time to say, okay, well, let's see, Dennis has 5 stab wounds, and Norma has this many this many bullet wounds. But you could definitely see that it was a very bloody crime scene, and something had happened, whether it was, like I said, an animal attack or a murder suicide or a murder. And so it is very interesting how she knew that, but. That's just one of those things that you just kind of have to chalk up to. Maybe it's possible. Maybe she just guessed. She's like, oh, well, I heard they were dead, and I just kind of assumed that they were murdered and didn't really know that they were. That's always a possibility. But it definitely is kind of suspicious.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say I remember from watching the documentary that when she initially contacted the Hunt County Sheriff's Department, didn't she lie about her identity? Didn't she say that she was somebody else? Or am I just way off? Maybe it was... It's another case in a different documentary, and
have you been cheating on me with documentaries?
Sorry, I could have sworn
it wasn't that she lied and said she was someone else. She just blocked the caller ID, so she was trying not to give her identity at first, and then she realized, well, I guess I can't really do that if I'm going to be saying all this stuff.
Right.
You're going to need to know who I am, and I'm going to have to probably give a statement. But she did say that she worked for the United States Treasury. I have no idea why somebody.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, when somebody, I mean, what would I do if there was a murder investigation? Would I call the detective on the case and say, "Hey, my name is Scott, and by the way, I'm an EMT." Like
that makes a difference.
Yeah, exactly. So, it didn't. I don't know. She just. That's what she said, and that's fine. It is what it is, and anybody can make up their own opinion as to what significance that has. But like I said, it just kind of it's kind of like the first thing that happens that gives you a little bit of pause,
Yeah.
And this is what I tell people all the time, and this is what I'll tell the viewers and the listeners. Don't make up your mind yet. Wait until we get to the end of the season. Wait until you have all of the information. Wait till you hear all of the evidence and everything that, that's the reason we're doing the podcast, because I can't explain, let's say that there's 150 different points that we want to talk about. In a documentary in that type of format, I can only cover probably about 60 of those. Whereas with the podcast, we get to cover all 150 of them. So by the time this season ends, by the time we get to the last episode, you should be able to make at least an informed decision. And there are people that look at all the evidence or have looked at all the evidence and decided, you know what, I can't really say that he's innocent. Most of the time they say, I do feel like he didn't get a fair trial or he needs another trial. But there are some people that look at all the evidence and they're like, I can't say 100% that he's innocent. I can. So that's why we're here.
Did she truly work for?
Yes, she really did work. She was a Treasury agent. She worked in. I forget now. Someone told me one time, but she was some kind of paper pusher, basically. She was kind of a clerk or something like that. It's not like she was like a field agent that was going out there and investigating fraud or anything like that. She was kind of like an intake person or something like that.
HR. For the Treasury.
That would just make me... No, I'm not going to say it.
No.
I'm not going to say it, man. I just self-censored myself for the first time.
So that's all our questions for this week, or at least all the ones that we're going to discuss on camera. There were more. Have you heard from Brandon since the podcast began?
Yeah, everybody may be wanting to know. I have talked to Brandon. I told him what we're doing. Obviously he knows that we were planning on doing it. I've told him that we've come out with the podcast, and we're getting a lot of really good positive feedback on it, and he's really happy. He's very excited. I did tell him about one time he's going to have to call in and kind of answer some questions that some of the viewers have, and we'll give everybody a heads up on that. Say, hey guys, submit your questions for Brandon this week. He's going to call us, and we'll put that on air and all that stuff. But yeah, he's very excited about it. He's always been of the opinion, I just want to get my story out there, and that's I agree with him 100%. I feel like the more people that hear about his case and hear all of the evidence and hear everything that it takes to understand the case, that when people hear that, they will be on his side. And I guess we'll see at the end of the season. If we're at the end of the season and we've said, okay, guys, this is all the evidence that we have. What do you think? It'll be interesting to see how many people are like, I don't think he's innocent, or I think he's innocent, or it'll be interesting to see what the percentage is if everybody comes to the same conclusion I did.
if you can hang with us that long, 150 points. I mean, that means this podcast will be over. This season of the podcast will be over sometime in like 2023. So,
thanks for sticking with us for 2.5 years.
We're all like, our beards are really long and our clothes are dirty, and
we haven't left this studio since we started.
Just gasping for air.
No, I don't think it'll take that long, but I will say that, and this is kind of, this is new to us. We don't know how many episodes this is going to take. I mean, as of right now, we have 6 episodes complete,
right,
and working on the 7th episode. And, it's like, we haven't even, the next episode is the 7th episode is Brandon's interview. And this is 5 days after they've found the body.
Right.
So, we're 7 episodes in and we haven't really even gotten to Brandon's interview. So it's kind of interesting, how much stuff there is to this case, and some of the stuff, as I said before, we're talking about it and we haven't even really delved into it deeply yet. We just kind of mentioned it, but we will be going into the sword that was found. We will be going into the different stab wounds. We will be going into the autopsy report. We will be going into a lot of stuff in a lot of detail, because I feel like it's, people need to understand that and to be able to make an opinion.
Right. Well, let's end it on that. We're going to try and do a little bit shorter episode than what we did last week, but and that's why we only chose 5 questions this week. So,
but I feel like people want to hear us talk.
They do.
I feel like we're entertaining,
and you can hear Scott talk more on Sunday when episode 3 is released.
Yes.
So
it's a good one.
Don't forget to listen to episode 3 of the American Justice Podcast when it is released on Sunday.
And please comment on the video.
Yes, comment on the video.
YouTube likes comments. So the more comments that we have, the more it'll be suggested to other people.
People who normally wouldn't know that we were doing this.
Right.
You can check us out all over the internet. Facebook.com/
Are you trying to say we're internet sluts?
We are internet sluts.
Okay.
Facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. That's the Facebook page. Twitter page is twitter.com/A-Justice Podcast. Also, the official website of the American Justice Podcast is AmericanJusticePodcast.com. It's funny how that works.
.com. Who would have thought?
You can comment. You can leave questions on all of those. We'll get them all.
And tips for the case.
Tips for the case, yes. Or just comments on how we're doing. If you like us, if you don't like us, just let us know. We like to know these things. We need the encouragement.
Yeah, please make it just encouragement. Don't tell us how bad we are.
No, we're doing a good thing here. We're doing a good thing. I pat myself on the back all the time.
And I pat you on the back.
And you pat me on the back all the time. There's a lot of back patting going on here. The number to leave a voicemail to ask a question or to make a comment is area code 972-942-0444. Again, you don't really have to do that. This isn't live TV. They can just make the little bar go back and listen to it again. But I'm going to do you all a favor and give it to you one more time. That voicemail number is area code 972-942-0444. You can actually call, leave a voicemail, leave your name, ask a question, make a comment. Don't forget to give us permission to use your voice on the air, though.
Yes.
So for future reference. You can also donate to the show on Patreon. It actually does cost money to do what we're doing. Equipment, time, research, dog treats.
I don't think it's people don't like the word donate. They're supporting the show.
Okay. Help.
I've been told. I'm only going to say that because I've been told that people don't want to donate, but they do want to support you.
Support the show.
At least we hope they want to support
on
us.
our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/AJ Podcast. Again, because this deals with money, and money is very important. It's not that important, but it's important enough.
Well, we don't want to go. I mean, neither one of us are independently wealthy. So
right, exactly.
We do want to keep this going at some point. At some point, we'll just run out of money. We'll be flat broke, and we'll be doing this in the middle of the street in Harry Hines or something. Unless somebody supports us on Patreon.
Somebody supports us.
And you don't want to, trust me, you do not want to see Chad or I.
We'll be doing it in the middle of the street on Harry Hines. And if you live in Dallas, you know what they do already in the middle of the street on Harry Hines.
Yeah.
You don't want to see us out there. So patreon.com/AJ podcast. You can also email your questions or your comments, info@americanjusticepodcast.com.
That's actually a pretty big one. I've gotten a few different questions via the email, and it's always convenient because then we can just put it right there on the question list. We have a question list. People out there can't see it, but we have a question list.
It's great that you guys are interacting. It's
Yes.
very encouraging.
Yes.
It makes us both feel like what we're doing is worthwhile.
Yes.
So don't forget, listen to the episode on Sunday. Ask your questions. We'll answer them on the Q&A next week.
Also, and I want to say that we're not just posting, like, if somebody just has a comment, not a question, we'll post that as well. And we're not just posting the positive stuff. It's great that all we've gotten so far is positive stuff. But, if somebody calls in and says, hey, I really think you guys are a couple of crank anchors, then, we'll post that as well. Like, I don't care, whatever.
Yeah, you think we're a couple of tools? That's okay. We've heard it all before.
Does that make me a hoe?
You're not. Yes.
Oh.
You're not going to hurt our feelings. Also,
We have to have feelings first.
You can read more about Brandon Woodruff's case and the documentary in production at the website freebrandon.org. If you haven't been there, there's a lot of really good information there. If you can read that, contact us through there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all we have for this week. I'm C. Derick Miller. You can find me at cderickmiller.com and all my lunacy that I go on. Listen to the Butterflies Make Me Angry podcast. So there'll be a new episode of that this week.
I think we need to find something else that's like real, like Rainbows Make Me Angry, and we'll change the name of our podcast to Rainbows Make Me Angry.
But they don't.
Or something like, galloping horses make me angry. Like, we should just, every week we should list what makes us angry.
A new Make Me Angry. I have something that makes me angry today, but I'm going to do this person a big favor and not go into it on a podcast video. Just know, if you're watching, I'm angry. You know who you are.
You don't seem angry. I'm not angry.
I could be angry and smile at the same time.
Maybe I'm angry.
I think that's called being psychotic, though.
Yeah, that's true. Neither one of us are that.
Yes, straight-faced, always. Thank you for watching the Q&A for the American Justice Podcast. Don't forget to catch the new episode of the podcast on Sunday morning, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye. Oh, we forgot to do our tagline. Okay, so...
We forgot to do the tagline.
I feel like I should not even edit that out.
You shouldn't. We don't edit anything else out. Don't edit this out.
Don't edit this out.
I'm
okay.
sorry. I dropped the ball here. I didn't do the tagline.
I didn't put it on the list. I should have put it on the list.
In very large print. My new glasses haven't come in yet.
All right. So until next time.
Yes.
Stay aware, stay strong, and get involved.
Thank you.
Bye.
The American Justice Podcast is owned and copyrighted by Atua Productions, LLC. Your host is Scott Poggensee, and your writer is C. Derick Miller. The theme music for the American Justice Podcast has been created and composed by Josh DeRosa. Scripted and recorded episodes are published every Sunday morning, with follow-up Q&A episodes released on Fridays. Atua Productions aims for this to be an interactive podcast, where you, the audience, has a great amount of influence on the content of our shows. You can interact with us in several ways. First, and most preferred, is you can leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 972-942-0444. Be sure to leave your name and the city you're calling from, along with whether or not we can use your voice on the air. If Facebook is more your style, you can log on to our Facebook page at facebook.com/American Justice Podcast. Feel free to leave a comment, or you can message us on Messenger if you have a more pressing question or issue. If you would like to blog about the show, then you can log on to AmericanJusticePodcast.com and tell us what you think there. You can find many of the documents discussed in this episode there as well. If you are a tweeter, you can also voice your opinion on Twitter at @AJusticePodcast. If you would like to support the show, you can do so in a couple different ways. First, consider visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/AJPodcast. We have different levels of support that include t-shirts, guest call-in spots, and early access to our podcast and YouTube shows. Next, you can like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get notifications of when we publish episodes. We would also very much appreciate it if you could give us a 5-star review. If you have any comments about the show, or more importantly, any tips on the case we're discussing, please call 972-942-0444 and leave us a message. After all, if the subject of our podcast is innocent, that means someone out there is guilty. American Justice Army? Let's find them.